Hi and welcome to the channel. Today I'm presenting about another interesting episode of Herald Tribune World Youth Forum. In this episode, youngsters discuss about what's the best form of government and participated following students: Gojko STANIC from Yugoslavia, MARIN from France, Jörg Ingo Weber from Germany, Mohammed Abdulla HAMADIEN from Sudan. As usual, presenter of the discussion is lovely Mrs. Helen Height-Waller. Here we go to the video.
By the New York Herald Tribune Youth Forum. Each student, while here, will live with 4 host families with teenage children and attend local public and private schools. Today's discussion will be between Mr. Jörg Ingo Weber of Germany, Miss MARIN of France, Mr. Mohammed Abdulla HAMADIEN of Sudan, and Mr. Gojko STANIC of Yugoslavia. And here is your moderator, Helen Height-Waller.
Mohammed's just been telling us that the constant double propaganda barrage from Washington and Moscow are very confusing to his people in the Sudan and make them troubled in their minds. Go ahead with what you were saying, Mohammed.
Well, in Sudan we have different propagandas from Russia and America, and each one is trying to point that his system is the best in the world. And I couldn't decide. How can I decide? Because from Moscow they say that communism is the best, and they have their attractive slogans: peace, bread, and freedom. And I can't I can't see that peace and bread and freedom, because I often hear about the slave labor in Siberia. Where is freedom? I can't understand. I'm very confused because each one is trying to point that he's the best. I'm very confused, really.
We've got people from here from both different systems. Why don't we ask Gojko what socialism has got to offer an underdeveloped country that democracy hasn't got?
Well, if I listen to you and if you want my answer, how should I solve this problem, I should say that you don't listen to anybody, but you must do what is the best for your people, and you must not forget at the same time the rest of the world. But I think that the best is if you think by yourself, and then you do what you think is the best for you. But if we can choose between socialism and between capitalism, I should just say that socialism is a system of nowadays. And you can find anywhere in the world nowadays that the world is moving towards socialism. And I think so if we want this or if we don't want, you can find these things here in the United States and also in other states and everywhere in the world.
But you said that our people have to choose for themselves. They are not educated. They must follow a certain ideology so that they may be developed. Don't forget the fact that we are an underdeveloped country. Mm-hmm. They don't have the choice. That's a problem with us.
What's about Yugoslavia? I should say Yugoslavia was also very underdeveloped country, not as yours, but it was really. Well, we had our Communist Party, and the Communist Party really leads us forward. And we have a great problem as you have.
Well, you said that your Communist Party leads you forward. But I hear that there are certain contradictions between the original socialism and nowadays socialism. There is a great confusion for me, because in the early days Marx and Engels pointed out that socialism, all the world will be socialistic, and they have certain systems, and each one, when Lenin came, when Stalin came, each one went his own way. What's socialism? I can't understand. What's socialism?
Well, for socialism, I should say nowadays nowhere in the world we have socialism, and we cannot speak about communism at all. Well, the people use this word communism, but it's not good using at all. And well, we in Yugoslavia, we are fighting now for socialism, and well, I think it's the best if I tell you maybe in theory how it looks like socialism.
I know the theory, but I see the contradiction between theoretical and practical.
Sure, there are always, there must be contradictions, because the life is life and theory is theory, you
Let
know?
Jörg get into this.
Yes.
I really can't say by my own experience that there are great differences between the theoretical way of communism and the practical way of it. What I think is called then Bolshevism. That's a difference expressed by the words.
Give us your background first, Jörg. You lived in communist East Germany till you were...
Yeah, our hometown is Berlin, but after the war we had to escape. We had to go over to out of Berlin, and then it became East Germany after the war, and we stayed there for 9 years until the beginning of 1953. And I've had my own experiences in this time, what was going on with the communistic system.
Well, tell us some. It will help Mohammed.
Perhaps I can just first say, I have read a bit about communism. I don't know so much about it. I'm not familiar with it. But what I have read, I would say that I'm not prejudiced against communism, because I think there are a lot of good points in it, which mean really good and help for the world. But when I compare it with the way of communism, as it is shown, as I have seen it in East Germany, and as it is shown just today, I think I never could be for communism in favor of.
No, neither am I for the communism that is now in Russia, because, you know, we have also they don't agree with our Communist Party, you can see this, because we go our own way and so on. But anyway, the aim of communism is, the aim is humanism, and the main aim is humanism, not anything wrong and beautiful, really.
Tell me, can it go somehow conform together with the practical way? When one is for communism, one can't go the way which they go in East Germany, as I've seen, and I think as well as they do it all over the eastern part there, that there terror rules all over the country, that the personality of a man has nothing to say, really nothing, that they only count the mass of people, and that the individual is nothing.
I don't agree with them. We say, well, they say that individuals are not important and that they are building socialism. But we ask them, what for? For whom are they building socialism if not for people?
Yeah, for themselves, for the people, yeah.
Oh, no.
But I think they have the idea that they must crush the personality of the individual, so that they consider the individual as a multitude of the society. They don't have any regard for the individual. And that's, I can't understand that. I mean,
well,
could it be done?
I shouldn't speak about communism in these countries, but about so-called communism in that countries.
But speak to us about Yugoslavia. You have your personal experience there, and Jörg has his. And Katrine's sitting over there and hasn't said a word yet.
Well, ladies,
well, what advice would you give to Mohammed? Here he comes from a country which, as he says, was a nomadic agricultural country until very recently.
Yeah.
Now, how can we help Mohammed? What kind of government will be best for his country?
Well, being French, naturally, I'm very much for freedom, you see. That's the big point. So I reject completely communism because of that because they reject the individual, you see. And I think democracy is naturally the best, and complete democracy, but then you shouldn't have too many parties, because too many parties are very too dangerous. You have democracy.
No. A few months ago there was a revolution in Sudan. The army took over the government because the parties were quarreling among each other. Each one is trying to take money from a different country. For example, one party was trying to take money from United States, the other from Russia, the other from weak England, I could say. And I mean, the army couldn't stand it, so there is a dictatorship now, and I think dictatorship works more than democracy, and this has been discussed before.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't see the program.
If you want to know maybe how it goes, first during the revolution and war, it was really dictatorship of the leaders and so on, and also of voted people. But after the war there was also quite a dictatorship of the Communist Party. But nowadays...
In Yugoslavia?
Yes, sure, because it has to be. But nowadays, every day we have much more democracy, and real democracy. Nowadays, if you come to Yugoslavia, you won't feel any oppression upon people, because really we are, I can say, formally, the most democratic country in the world. I didn't find any. Because if you say something in my country, and if you have a reason for that, the assembly and everybody will listen to you. And this is really true.
Yeah, you can say it, but what will follow? If it is a
Yes,
communistic
the actions
country,
will follow.
then nothing will follow? I think as I know anybody who says something what he really thinks, but which doesn't fit into the communistic system, which is something, they just call it quite quickly espionage, and he is an enemy of the country, and he is very, very quickly brought into, put into jail, yeah.
Are you speaking of Gilas?
Gilas, for instance, Gilas, yeah.
Gilas. I have, okay, read this book. And I can say that it's not true what he says.
But
it's not true,
yeah.
So if you lie, I agree that he can be put to prison. I agree with that.
But please, in a free country, in a democratic country, you can say what you want. It might not be true, but you can say it. You can't be put into prison for this.
Do you agree that you can insult anybody? Also, you are not right. Do you agree with that? You can say really everything here in the United States. You can say about or what you want.
Yeah,
also
you can.
By the way,
I am sure you can say it here in the United States as a country of freedom.
Oh, you can.
I mean, as far as it is
that
not.
You really can.
Well,
yeah,
no, perhaps they won't.
Yeah.
Perhaps they won't. When they don't want to say something against Eisenhower, they don't do it because they are not allowed, but perhaps because they won't.
By the way, last night I was discussing with one from Russia about communism, and I said, you have no freedom of speech. He said, we have. I said, imagine that I went to Russia. Could I say anything against Khrushchev?
No.
He said, yes, you can, but Khrushchev has nothing wrong. So this is his idea.
Dialectism.
I mean,
dialectical materialism.
Gojko, to be honest, I'd just like to make this point. I hope you have been reading the American press in the last 2 or 3 weeks, because the criticism of our government has been accelerating lately since the new Congress. I think you will find that the criticism is fairly sharp. However, forgive me, go ahead with what you were going to say.
Well, I should say that we have also criticism, but it is a criticism that really shows you some problems, and there are really problems since nothing, any lie in it. You know, so that we solve actual problems, and if you, well, there are very few points that you can say to our government that they have made wrong or something like that. But we do. Also, they by themselves they say this, that they have done wrong. You just read some papers, you will find it. Eh?
Perhaps Yugoslavia is a bit an exception, perhaps.
That's
But
right.
in general, as I know, in East Germany, the priests in East Germany, there are a lot of priests who are in prison because they said their real conviction, and they said what they wanted to say. And they are now, since years, they are in there. I have it when we go to church in Berlin. They always, the priests pray for the priests in East Germany who are in prison there, and they tell them by name to. You see, that's true then. It's nothing false.
I have some friends who were also in these eastern countries and so on, and they told me, and I agree with this, that they are not right what they do there.
The point you brought up, though, Gojko, we have to face. You said there is freedom of speech as long as you don't say anything that isn't true.
Yes.
Well, who's to decide what is true?
Yeah.
that's the point.
Well,
I have. Excuse me. I have just a wonderful idea which
That's
I
what's
read
confusing me, by the way.
about communism, about this way of dialectical materialism. Is that right?
Yeah.
They wrote there. It's really it was in the book by Golbitzer. Perhaps you know him, Golbitzer. It's called "And Lead Them Where You Don't Want." And there he wrote, a professor, a Soviet professor said. He was teaching in a barrack, and the wall was very dirty, and he said, well, the wall is white, it's wonderful, clean white. And they said, it is not white, it's dirty. He said, no, you must see it from this point of view. Now it's dirty, but tomorrow it will be white, because it will be painted. So it is a very clean wall.
Supposedly.
What they understand, I had to laugh about it, I think it's somehow curious.
Oh, about dialectical materialism?
No, but about his point. About his point, that truth is what is going to be tomorrow. I think this is very well chosen.
Because
Because Russians have said the same thing. Don't take pictures of the poor people in the streets. That is only temporary.
Yeah.
Truth is what is
yeah,
going
they
to be
say in
tomorrow.
Russia-
I think we must face the reality, and then on the reality we must build up.
See, another example for this is if a stranger comes to Russia, he never should report when he comes back. In Russian they are all poor and it's all dirty in the Russian streets. He should say it's wonderful, it's clean, it's all beautiful Russia, because it will be tomorrow in this way. I think it's funny to say it's beautiful when it's in the
Well,
we can
well, I
laugh
should
about
say
it.
that this dialectical materialism, the philosophy, this, well, I am this way. And I can say that I can explain any other philosophy and religion with this philosophy. It means to me that it is the best philosophy now.
Do you want to tell us why, in your point of view, it's better than democratic capitalism? Sincerely?
Democratic
Why
capitalism.
is your system of government in Yugoslavia today, from your point of view?
Just because, for instance, democracy wastes a lot.
Democracy wastes
Waste,
a lot.
yeah.
Look, France, you see democracy. Well, you know, but these parties and so on, I think that the people must rule. Really, it's just the, well, when we have elections, we just elect the working people, the best people, I think, the workers,
But
who we
why?
think that they are clever and good enough to lead our country. We don't elect anybody who is communist, not anybody who is, I don't know, what.
You say that the
religion and so on.
people must rule, but now they are not ruling. There are certain group of leaders which decide anything.
In
The
Yugoslavia.
I mean, in communism, I don't care. I'm speaking about communism. A certain group of leaders will lead the country, and there is nothing wrong with them, whatsoever.
And explain to us how the election system works, will you? I'm sure Mohammed would be interested in that.
Oh, maybe. Well,
can't.
this election system, it's quite complicated thing. First, all the people from a district came together. They elect among themselves about a committee, maybe of 20, 30 people, and this committee decided and he make a proposal and they discuss because there are few people and they can choose the best candidate. And they have quite a lot of discussion about this candidate. After that, the population came together once more, and the committee says to them whose candidate did they choose, or if they choose 2 or 3 of them. And then, well, if the people are satisfied, they put him on list. If they are not, they don't put him on list.
I can give you a
And,
wonderful example of
Then there are elections.
of so-called free elections they have in Germany, as they say. I know it. What they have this sheet of
No,
paper,
this is
yeah?
Yugoslavia.
Yeah, but I tell you, that's called a communistic country, and socialist communistic country, East Germany, yeah?
It's a
They
bad
have
term.
this sheet of paper, there's on SED, that means Socialist Unity Party. And then these who have before this they have a lot of propaganda, and in the morning when it starts, it's horrible. I saw a film about they go with drums to the local where they have to vote, and they are called by trumpets and so on, and then they have to go in groups and marching towards the local. It's the truth. And then they have this sheet of paper, and they only can make a cross. Are you for the SED? And then they have this little circle. If they put a cross in, they are. If they don't put a cross in, they are not. There's no other possibility. They call this free elections.
Is
And
that similar to
they don't-
Yugoslavia, I wonder? Do you have just one
No.
candidate for an office?
One party. Do you have one party or several
We
parties?
don't have parties at all.
Well, why there should be an election?
I told you that we elect just the people.
Ah, yeah.
We don't elect
Did you say
parties.
the
What have
workers?
party with the government?
Go ahead,
Did you say
Katrina.
only the workers? Why
Well,
only the
no,
workers?
I
You
don't
said
mean the workers. The teacher and such as and educated people, they are also workers. I'm a worker too if I study, if I'm not lazy. I think that everybody who works, who's not lazy, who just lies down and don't work and such things, you know. Well,
They have
I mean, the good people.
And
You
what
know
do-
them.
How can you choose
Popular.
good or bad people?
Oh, the people know them. Never mind.
But they have
know.
one ideology. I mean, if there is real free election, there must
Yes.
be 2 ideas, so that I can choose between this or this.
Why?
But maybe I'm not
Look,
satisfied with an idea.
in a district you have thousands of people, and you can choose among thousands of people one that is really the best, can't you?
Yes, I can, but
Why?
if there are two people with different ideas, I mean, I can choose between this and this.
But there are 1,000 people with 1,000 ideas.
But they have one idea, a
And-
communistic idea. I mean, the ideology, I am speaking
Why?
about the ideology.
Why?
It's one, you said you have only one party.
No
We
party.
don't have party.
No party.
Yes,
When we
only
have
one group,
elections,
only one group,
You
I
must
should say.
know something also, that when we have elections, there is no propaganda. We have just elections.
Gojko.
We also go on, well, if the people, well, they get together and they go with flags and so. But it's not any rule, it's just if they decided to do so. And then
Wait,
they,
give Katrina a chance.
Do you have
Yes.
any opposition in your parliament?
Oh, I didn't heard about that.
You
No,
don't
my-
have any opposition?
You sure they have discussions and so on, but
Yes, but a
Usually-
real, I mean a real one.
no, not,
opposition.
not like as you have.
Well, then you can have a normal
I mean,
government.
that's
because
not
Parliamentary
Real-
life can only exist by
And we don't
one
have
who's
this.
for it and one who's against it.
Then
Why?
this is not real freedom.
You are all it is no parliament.
You see, for
There must
instance,
be
in my
somebody who
government
speaks
now,
against.
there is an enormous majority on one side and then just
And
a
what
few
did they
people.
decide?
Pardon?
What did they decide?
What did they decide?
What did they
In
decide
Algeria
how?
you have still war. And so on.
Well,
You see-
naturally, because the
well,
majority
France
is
is-
for
And I can say also
Algeria.
for the other countries and also
Well, look, it's
United
perfectly all right to attack Katrine on their Algerian policy, but I think first you ought to
Yes,
answer her
yes.
point. She says that unless you have an opposition, and Jörg and Mohammed are saying this too, you can't have a real parliamentary, free government unless you have the party in power and a party in opposition always checking it, criticizing it to make it do better. Now, you probably have a point of view, but explain it to us.
Okay, you have individuals in the assembly, and I think if there is a point when they must really struggle, then everybody will think by his head and not with the head of any party, and so you will really have a real, well, I think if you have 500 people, then the trust will come out. And what's the better? And
But-
if you look here, if you have the parties, then the votes are just all the time the same opposition.
That's
is-
not true.
Well, okay, but it nearly is.
No, that's not true.
I don't think that it's very good.
Because only
if you
some
have
of the
such-
parties decide, well, used to anyway, decide, well, what their members should vote. But anyhow, anyway, they could vote what they wanted. Only the party said, well, you better vote for that.
But look at
because
your
it's better.
parties. They promise when there are elections. They promise this. They promise that. They promise that. And what did they do after that?
It's the
Gojko,
same in
I
East.
said,
And
I said,
then if first you elect this party, they didn't they didn't do what they promised you. After that you say this party is bad. I'm going to elect this party. Oh, blah, blah.
No,
That's
I mean,
nothing.
but that I told you, I said it
And the
myself.
time goes
we
on,
have
you
too,
pay
we
taxes
used to
and
have
so
too
on.
many.
No, we are not for that.
but you see the use of opposition is that the governing body must be checked, I mean. It shouldn't do anything it likes. There must be opposition so that the people must know what is bad, what is good for them. But if there is no opposition,
But
no.
I should say that before we pass a law in our assembly, there are discussions for real discussions.
But-
I know for our law for schooling system, I discussed too. It was discussions through 1 year before this law was composed and so on.
But you are all following the same idea. I mean the same idea, because I mean
Well-
that's socialism. So there is no real opposition except in the interpretation of socialism.
But well, I don't know. We cannot understand.
Well,
it.
Jörg, tell us a little bit. You both agree that Jörg, having lived in East Berlin and West Berlin, has had some personal experience with both socialism, communism, and democracy. How do elections look in the... Tell us from your experience. You've seen both at work.
You
Let's try
mean-
to help Mohammed here.
You mean different?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
As I said already before, in East Germany, elections are nearly nothing, I think. Because they only are there to say yes to the government, which is in truth, which is no government. They are only there as marionettes from the Soviet Union, from Russia there. And they can't do anything else except saying yes to the system. And he who says no, he is very well. They have guards there in the local for elections, and then they see who doesn't make any cross in there, and then it takes perhaps 1 or 2 days, and then they say, oh, there was a good example. I must tell this. They had these elections, and at the end they began counting them, and they counted 100% for SED, as yes. And one who was there, he rose up his hand and said, that can't be true because I voted for no. And what happened to him? He was very lucky. He escaped to West Berlin just the next day, because they wanted to capture him. Yeah, he was absolutely positive.
Okay.
That's freedom, huh, is it?
No, it's not freedom.
What's it then?
I agree with that, it's not freedom, but now tell about your elections in West Berlin.
Okay. In West Berlin we have all parties are allowed. You see, including not communist. In West Berlin.
Freedom.
Wait a minute. In West Berlin, the Social Unity Party, the East German Party, is allowed, and they vote there. In the last elections, in last December, they got not 2%, they got 1.9% there.
Sure,
that shows how we are, how we believe in this good communist system. We think it's the best all, and each party is allowed, and they can make their propaganda.
You cannot say that.
Yeah, it is.
Because Communist Party is not allowed. And
in West Germany, in West Germany, but
yes,
not in West Berlin. And in West Germany, it's forbidden because it's staatsfeindlich.
But West Germany is bigger than West Berlin, I can
enemy
say.
of the state.
And as an enemy of the state, who is not good for the state. They are. I can't explain it to you. It would take 5 hours, I think.
No, that's the
Except I
position
don't know
of
it.
Berlin inside communist East Germany. But in West Germany, the Communist Party is allowed. Go ahead, make your point.
Okay, but Marx and Engels and communists were originate just from Germany. And you know that Hitler, he cut down the Communist Party.
Yeah.
But I know you have communists, I mean the real communists, maybe something like we have. I don't say that we are the best, but we are nearly very good. And
I mean, you are better than the Russians, I will agree. I don't know exactly, yeah. I don't know so much about your system, I don't know too much about the Russian system, but as far as I believe, the Yugoslavian way as communism might be better than the Russian way, and I think the French way is also quite different, and the Italian way
I'm
too.
sorry, that's all the time we've got. I don't think we've helped you too much, Mohammed, but we'll continue this discussion on what is the better form of government. Until next week then, I'm sorry our time's up. Until next week then, next week we're going to be talking about teenage life in different countries. We didn't have
So much.
well, it's not standing out.
Young Worlds has been produced by WCBS TV with the New York Herald Tribune Youth Forum.
Never heard you talk so little.
Well,
Travel arrangements for our guests were made by Pan American World Airways and Trans World Airlines.
simply good.
Oh, it went so quick.
I know, he always does.
Half an hour. It's half an hour. I look at the watch, yeah, I saw it.
I told you.
This has been a presentation of